The invitation is declined, the phone is set down, and what arises is not guilt, but a wave of relief so deep it feels anatomical. The mere idea of assembling a persona, of orchestrating your affect for an audience, now feels like a gravity you cannot overcome. There was a time when this would have been incomprehensible. You were the one who said yes. Your calendar was a testament to a conviction that a life in motion was a life of substance. But now, the stillness of your own space calls with an authority that bypasses preference. It feels less like a choice and more like a magnetic pull toward a center you had forgotten. A quiet question may form: is something wrong? Is this withdrawal? Has the light within you dimmed? What you are encountering is not a malfunction. It is the most logical outcome of a fundamental recalibration within your consciousness. This is not social fatigue, nor is it a melancholy. It is what occurs when certain walls you never perceived as walls, begin simply to evaporate. Consider the architecture of the previous self. For most of your life, your existence was organized around a central protagonist, a character with a biography, a resume of triumphs and wounds, a constellation of relationships that defined its edges. You understood yourself to be this entity navigating a world of other separate entities. From this vantage, the social world was not merely recreational, it was existential infrastructure, the stage upon which the role of you was performed, rehearsed, and revised. You ventured out to be witnessed, to have your reality confirmed in the gaze of another. A compliment fortified you. Slight introduced a hairline fracture in your foundation. Even in seeking connection, the silent plea was often, "Tell me I am here. Tell me I matter." Unknowingly, you had outsourced the validation of your own being. Then, a fissure appears. Maybe gradual, or it may arrive in a moment of unasked for clarity. The recognition dawns. You are not the character, you are the awareness within which the character is perceived. The locus of your identity migrates from the storyline to the silent, spacious witness of the story. You begin to sense yourself as the page, not the text, as the vastness of the sky, not the weather that temporarily conditions it. This is not a theory to be believed. It is a sensory truth, a rehoming. When this occurs, the entire endeavor of social engagement undergoes a silent revolution. You had been participating to construct, maintain, and adorn a separate self. But if you are no longer primarily that construct, what is the purpose of all that construction? The intricate machinery of social performance, the curated anecdote, the calibrated opinion, the subconscious tracking of how you are being received, begins to seem like an elaborate game whose rules you have spontaneously forgotten. The people have not changed. The fuel has. You were running on the fuel of seeking yourself, and the search has ended, because the seeker was what you thought you were, not what you are. This is the alchemy that transforms your home. It ceases to be a docking station for exhaustion. It becomes a sanctuary of radical honesty. Here alone the performance is permitted to cease. There is no audience to appease, no mask to adjust. You are not required to be charming, accomplished, or agreeable. You may simply inhabit. You may exist without narration. This unadorned state, which the old self might have diagnosed as boredom or lack, now reveals itself as a profound and bottomless peace. It is the sensation of removing a heavy, ornate garment you did not realize you were wearing. Let this be unambiguous. This is not a disdain for humanity. It is not a repudiation of connection. Those who deepen into this awareness often cultivate relationships of startling authenticity. But the appetite for constant stimulation, the tolerance for hollow ritual, and the very texture of your attention undergo a quiet upheaval, for you begin to notice, in social spaces, the tremendous, visible labor. Even agreeable conversation, a part of you now observes the subtle choreography You detect the mental machinery. What comes next? Did that succeed? Do I please them? Am I perceived as capable? You may see the same quiet anxiety reflected in the eyes across from you. You are both performers, playing to an imagined jury. Before, you were in the performance, believing it to be reality itself. Now you feel the weight of the costume. You hear the strain in the delivery. You become aware of the sheer energetic cost. It is as if your hearing has refined, and you now perceive the constant low-frequency hum of the social engine that was always running in the background. You sense the unspoken agreements, the subtle negotiations for status, the layered meanings beneath the words. So much of it, you realize, is astonishingly automatic, like watching actors recite lines from a script they did not write, reacting to cues they do not see. Previously, you were on that stage, believing in your role. Now you have stepped into the wings. You can discern when a conversation is not a meeting of two presences, but a collision of projections. The person speaking is not addressing you. They are addressing their idea of an authority figure, a rival, a source of solace. They await your lines in their personal drama. The exchange becomes a transaction of energy, often devoid of the quality you now crave, a wake, genuine meeting. This is why the casual gathering can become depleting. Picture a room vibrating with dozens of these unconscious transactions. The very air feels dense with unseen narratives, with manufactured levity, with anxiety disguised as enthusiasm. You are invited to a dance where every participant watches their own feet, and no one truly hears the music. You can execute the steps, you are fluent in this second language, but the effort is palpable. Home, by contrast, is where that static dissolves into pure signal. It is where you cease translating your being into social dialect. Then there is the phenomenon of silence, and your entire relationship to it is reborn. Before this inner shift, silence was frequently an antagonist. The aloneness of your rooms, the quiet would feel pressurizing, vacant. You would rush to populate it, with sound, with light, with digital streams, with the internal chatter of planning and regret. This was because silence threatened an encounter you were evading, a meeting with the raw, unfiltered presence beneath the busy persona. The background noise was not entertainment, it was a shield. After awakening, silence is no longer an absence. It becomes a presence, a substance, rich and nutritive. It is the fertile void from which all authenticity germinates. The quiet, free from the distraction of performance or the noise of expectation, you can finally listen, not with the ears, but with the whole of your being. You might hear the soft hum of your own aliveness. You might feel the subtle circulation of sensation that is always here, beneath the drama of thought. Silence becomes the sanctuary, where you are not a someone, but awareness itself, resting in its own nature. This does not imply static contemplation. You may read, you may create, you may perform the most mundane tasks, but these activities are now held within that deep, undistracted presence. They are performed with a fullness of attention that is itself meditative. The action unfolds within the silence, it does not shatter it. A doubt will inevitably surface. Regard your former social self, the vibrant connector, the eager participant. And you wonder, have I diminished? Is this a quiet retreat from life? Concerned voices may reinforce this. You've become so quiet. You should get out more. This can plant a seed of uncertainty. You must discern the essential distinction. What is commonly called isolation is a state of longing. It is loneliness, the ache of a perceived disconnect. What you are experiencing in chosen solitude is completion. It is the visceral discovery that you were never a fragment seeking its missing piece. When you know yourself as the awareness that contains all experience, you are never truly alone. You are in the company of the most intimate presence conceivable, your own fundamental being. This is not narcissism. It is the end of the search for yourself in the external landscape. From this place of inherent fullness, every social gesture becomes precisely that, a gesture, not a need. This leads to a natural and uncompromising audit of your energetic economy. You become exquisitely discerning about where you place your attention, your life force. You begin to feel the authentic cost of engagements undertaken on autopilot. The obligatory celebration for a peripheral acquaintance, the professional mixer buzzing with trivialities, the familial ritual where you recite lines from an ancient script. You see these events not as opportunities, but as withdrawals from your inner reserve of peace. Before, you might have attended from a nebulous sense of duty or the faint hope that this time it would fill some unseen cavity. Now, you measure the transaction with clarity. You are asked to spend the currency of performance, to navigate unconscious fields, and to fracture your attention. In exchange for what? The return is often a weariness, a sense of having wandered from your axis. So you begin to choose anew. A polite, gentle no becomes an act of fidelity to yourself. It is not a rejection of others, but an affirmation of the sanctity of your own awareness. This selectivity is not about constructing fortifications. It is about architecting a life around a central pillar. And that pillar is located, reinforced, and polished in solitude. The hours spent at home in simple presence are not void. Are the hours you spend realigning with truth. It is where the distortions of the social sphere, the comparisons, the performances, the noise, are allowed to settle, like silt in a still vessel, until your perception is once again clear. You begin to structure your existence to protect sanctuary. Cultivate blank spaces in your schedule. You understand that an empty evening is not a deficit, but a potential aperture to depth. This is the antithesis of hiding from life. It is the preparation to meet life from a position of wholeness rather than hunger. Do choose to engage. You arrive from this replenished integrity. The interaction is transformed because you are not there to extract validation, identity, or distraction. You are there to meet, to share, to offer from a fullness that wishes to overflow. And from this state, a single, genuine moment of eye contact can contain more meaning than a lifetime of staged gatherings. The pull toward home, therefore, is the pull of your own deepest reality. It is the gravity of your true nature. The separate self you once believed yourself. F to B was a satellite, requiring constant external thrust, approval, accomplishment, entertainment, to maintain its orbit. Awakening is the realization that you are not the satellite. You are the planetary body, the central mass with its own immutable gravity. The satellite's trajectory may continue, but it is now optional, circling a center that is perpetually at rest, forever at home within itself. This is why the judgment of others, or the echo of your own former judgments, loses its sting. They observe a person preferring to stay in, and they perceive an absence of amusement, of linkage, of vitality. They cannot perceive the profound presence that is being cultivated. They cannot fathom the intricate interior universe you are navigating, which renders so much of the external spectacle seem by comparison like a frantic and recurring pantomime. If you recognize this shift within yourself, trust it. This is not an interim stage of recovery. It is the recovery in action. That yearning for quiet, that preference for your own company, that sense of indelible correctness when you close your door and the world's demands dissolve, this is not your personality contracting. It is your essence recalling its original condition. It is the call of the ocean to the wave, reminding it that its true identity is not the transient crest, but the abyssal depth from which it emerged and to which it will return. Your home becomes the physical analog of this inner truth. Every room Every quiet corner becomes a chapel to authenticity. Here, you are not a role, you are not a narrative. You are the aware space that permits all roles and narratives to arise and subside. And within this space, there resides a peace independent of circumstance, a connection that requires no other, and a fulfillment no social calendar could ever furnish. So when you next choose the quiet evening over the clamorous invitation, do not frame it as a refusal offered to the world. Understand it as a deeper, more resonant acceptance offered to yourself. You are answering the most critical summons you will ever receive, the call to come home, not to a location, but to the presence that you have always been. And in that homecoming, you do not find isolation. Find the end of all loneliness. You find, irrevocably, the unshakable peace of being precisely what you are.